I guess what I'm trying to say is if you look at everything, the entire universe, everything that there is, and pretend that the universe has a consciousness, not in the sense of human consciousness as how we see it, but an awareness of itself, or even if you don't pretend that it has an awareness of itself. At every, for every quote unquote infinite or infinite possibilities, for all the infinite possibilities that exist of what is the state of the universe, when you're looking at subatomic particles and acknowledge what's called a quantum leap, and you understand that you apply that to everything in the universe. When I said that, regardless of whether you look at free will, destiny, God's will, or scientific determinism, when I said that either my hand is going to be here or my hand is going to be there, and you multiply or divide it by every single subatomic particle in me, which is one tiny, 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 tiny thing in the whole of everything of the universe. By looking at every single subatomic particle, there are only two possible states, and only one of them becomes real at any instant. And it's either this or that, to go with the original analogy. Either it's going to be on Venus, or it's going to be on Mercury, or either that subatomic particle is here or that subatomic particle is there. At any instant. Not both here and there at the same time. It is what it is. But whatever it is, that is part of everything, part of the entire universe, part of it all. Can't get around the fact that either that subatomic particle is, at that instant, is in one spot, or it's in another spot. And those are the two possibilities. If, because that subatomic particle apparently is not anywhere in between those distinct orbits. It can be in any of a number of orbits. It's not just two of them, but it's either going to be in this orbit or it's going to be in that orbit. That applies to every subatomic particle in the universe. And whereas we can measure my hand moving from here to there, when we get infinitesimal, you know, the frames per second, when you look at a video of a super slow-mo of a butterfly flapping its wings, or a bullet from the reality show Top Shot blowing up a bottle, it doesn't matter how many thousands of frames per second you're technology is. It's nothing compared to the fractions of milliseconds of of actions and events at the atomic and subatomic level. But just like with the film, you have frames, and back in the day when movies were made, and to a great extent still today, 24 frames per second. When you're watching a movie, uh, even if it's in digital form and it's not on film, you can break it down to frames. There's this frame and that frame. When you're projecting it or seeing it on a screen, it doesn't look like a bunch of frames. It just looks like you've got the in classic history of filmmaking, you had the horse running, and you could see the little photographs or drawings or images of the horse, and it would actually break up the illusion of movement. But of course, the faster you move from frame to frame, the more and the more frames you have in a second, the more your eyes pick it up as one smooth, continuous movement as opposed to a bunch of frames. And just like in film, there are frames. In the universe, there are quantum leaps, and quantum leaps are not a progression from an electron or a proton or a subatomic particle going from here to there. They are, at any given instant, either the electron, the proton, or whatever the subatomic particle is, in one spot, or it's in an entirely different spot. Entirely is a questionable use of words, but because just like I cannot push through a wall, the subatomic particle cannot. It's still going to be in orbit around the nucleus. I'm oversimplifying things here, but it's either going to be in this orbit or it's going to be in that orbit. And if "quote unquote" God, the disclaimer is being made about when I use that word as explained in the Shaman pages. Every single one of these subatomic particles is either here or there. Obviously, when I was talking about my right hand or my left hand, I am not, other than intellectually, we're not aware of the billions of particles that are moving within the atoms that make up our molecules, that make up our cells, that make up our body. But the reality is that all of them agreed that my right hand was there at that given moment. All of them agreed that my vocal cords are vibrating, that my heart was beating, that the computer was recording, that the data was being sent to YouTube, and so on and so forth. They all agree. They might bump into each other, and maybe the subatomic particle would like to be in one orbit, but because of every other subatomic particle everywhere in the universe, darn, it's going to go to this other orbit. It's fascinating, but oh man, anyway. Well, but yeah. At any given instant. And yet we cannot measure instants, but we can measure frames, if you will. And in a way that's hard to describe, the universe knows this particle is here, or this particle is there. And quantum physics is not about continuum. It's about either or. It's almost like the quantum leap is the ultimate manifestation of logic. Logic in the sense of distinction between X or not X. So in that sense, it's almost like the quantum leap is the ultimate manifestation of logic that is available to humans. Because either that atom is going to be in orbit X or that atom is going to be in a non-continuous, separate orbit, not X.